Honest J. Nowak. Coming at you live. Alright. A pleasure to meet y'all at last, and here we are with some more HJN graphics. And today, let's get on with another pick that I basically put together for my top 20 best PS4 games countdown video some time ago. This right here is Final Fantasy 15. You know what? I'm more than excited about this because you know what? I have yet to explain this in a bit better detail than I could possibly talk about. So here we go. Final Fantasy 15, a game starring the likes of a group of 4 friends, Noctis, Prompto, Ignis, and Gladiolus. And these 4 are out for quite a hasty adventure. An adventure unlike the likes of many other things that happen in the Final Fantasy universe. When it comes to Final Fantasy, it's been around for a long time, since the NES era, in the late 1980s and early 1990s. And the fact is that there are 15 official titles by this point. I don't really know if there's ever going to be a 16th official title, but I will say that at least it has given us quite a bunch of unique charms. Probably the most recent that we've gotten out of it so far, at least to my knowledge, was Final Fantasy VII Remake, which came out in late 2020. And let me tell you about that one though. I will in fact talk about it later this series, but oh my gosh, is it just fantastic. Like, so fantastic I feel like talking about it right now because I am just so overwhelmed by how amazing it is. Way too amazing. And even more proof that 2020 is a good year. So, I don't even know what else to say about that. So, let's just stick with 15 though, because I have a long way to go before I even get to a point where I can talk about 7 Remake. But anyways, these 4 friends, they have a lot to deal with. Prince Noctis, of course, has a lot of things to do before eventually taking the pole over in a kingdom. There's a lot of flashbacks that set up a unique story and the impressive lore behind it, especially when it comes to Noctis' childhood, and many more. But when it comes to the actual story relying on the actual gameplay, then it basically starts off with a few things in mind. The group of 4 friends have their own vehicle, the Regalia, as a way to travel around the world within the game's environment. And this is actually one of a few unique mechanics that you basically get to do here. So it's basically almost like you could probably pay just to play GTA San Andreas. Because with the fact that you can actually get inside a vehicle, drive it around the world, and then basically get out occasionally to stop roadblocks, fight giant monsters, go treasure hunting, and basically go to certain townships and stores to buy or sell unique items. I mean, there's a lot of variety riding on this game itself. Quite a few unique genres are put into place. Action, adventure, RPG, and so much more. I mean, there's really just a lot of other unique potentials that I've been able to find within this game. Throughout the last 11 to 12 days that I played it in July 2020, Final Fantasy 15, or XV as I've always called it, I never quite got used to Roman numerals, especially after 13, but when it comes to 15, however, XV, pretty much, it's safe to say, I still consider it to be one of the best that I might have ever had the chance to play. And as I've said before, Final Fantasy VII Remake, it probably might be better than everything else I've ever played so far. Better than everything else in the Final Fantasy universe, or Kingdom Hearts, or Just Cause, or Tomb Raider, or Outriders. I mean, Square Enix has been top-notch in recent years. Throughout the entire PS4's lifespan, 2013 to 2021, we have a lot of Square Enix titles out there. I mean, they're practically one of the main dominance factors that surround the PS4's marketing. EA, Treyarch, and tons of other companies have pretty much come together. But out of all of them, Square Enix probably holds the highest standards and the highest track records when it comes to making titles that become overly successful for a reason. And you know what? I'm not at all surprised. I especially remember that there were a lot of things to look out for. Across all PlayStation consoles, we always have a unique memory, or at least something that we always best remember from all sorts of cases that possibly take place. With the PlayStation 1, who could ever forget about Sony being in charge of the majority of the different games out there? Which is the reason why whenever the startup sequence takes place, there's the Sony logo 1995 edition, followed by the official PlayStation logo 1995 edition. With the PlayStation 2, there of course were the many games made by THQ, which, if you haven't already known, it was founded by the same guy who also founded LJN Toys, which, according to Cinemassacre Video, is probably one of the worst companies in the world. So, a guy makes the worst company ever to exist in the NES era, but also creates one of the best known companies of the PlayStation 2 era. So that's two entire planes of existence coming together into one. For the PlayStation 3, of course, there was the likes of Treyarch, Sledgehammer, and the many other companies that were in charge of the many Call of Duty games that came around during that exact era. So it's safe to say that they seem to be the main dominance factor when it comes to making games on a specific console during a certain game generation. For the PlayStation 4, Square Enix has made a ton of games out there between 2013 and 2021. Like, that's almost overwhelming, pretty much. I mean, I probably get that there's a lot of other companies out there, like Hasbro Interactive, THQ Nordic, Rainbow Entertainment, Wildcard, Snail, and Sony themselves. I mean, Sony themselves still does continue to provide with their own share of games of all sorts, like Gran Turismo, The Last of Us, and many others, pretty much. But like I said, there's a dominance factor when it comes to a certain company that produces a lot of games that it becomes overwhelmed to the point where you pretty much just have to give in and admit to the fact. They hold the dominance factor when it comes to gaming marketing. And Square Enix is the one that pretty much does it all. Final Fantasy 15, yeah, it's just that good. I mean, I'd probably consider it to be better than most other Square Enix games out there. But, like I've said, they've held a lot of franchises out there. Not just Final Fantasy, but also Kingdom Hearts, which actually has a base of Final Fantasy put in it, but has several other layers stacked on top. Most of which include various Disney characters and properties, like Mickey Mouse, Winnie the Pooh, and Toy Story. So, Kingdom Hearts is more or less just Final Fantasy and Disney put together. But when it comes to the other franchises, like Just Cause, Outriders, and Tomb Raider, and probably others as well, Square Enix has held a lot of marketing in the PlayStation 4 era, and maybe more than ever nowadays. I mean, with that many franchises that they have in the bag, all the money they have in their pockets from becoming this successful, it's probably no wonder why I consider Square Enix to be better than most other companies in the PlayStation 4 era. And I've gotten to know a lot of companies out there. Ones I've never even heard about before. Or ones I have never seen in a long time. I mean, THQ has definitely changed since the PS2 era. Because it's now THQ Nordic. So, I mean, that's just one big example of how much change has happened since their precursor days, pretty much, where they were the dominance factor in the PS2 era nearly 20 years ago. But above all that, Final Fantasy XV's storyline, characters, weapons, lore, and even soundtrack are just dazzling, beyond trust. So it's no wonder why I still give it such a high ranking amongst all PS4 titles I've ever played in my life. But you know what though? Final Fantasy VII Remake probably does have a ways of being even better than all the others. I got the chance to play through that game, and let me tell you, I will talk about it. But until that happens, well, you know what? I'm just going to call it right here. If you want to see more go down on my channel, then make sure that you like, subscribe, comment, follow me on social media, and stay on the Hollywood side.